And welcome, everybody, to the 149th episode of the Fact Is Podcast. We're your hosts, Nate Moses.
I'm Ryan Mays.
And I'm Stu Mowbray.
And welcome, everybody. Oh, man. It's good to be back. Good to be here for this week, of course. So, we're very happy to be here and excited to talk about what we've seen throughout the week. So, gentlemen, real quick, how's your week been? How are things going? And how do you feel? Ryan, we'll start with you.
I feel good. No, I've had a great week. Other than someone who will not be named trying to take my life today at basketball, I
wonder which jerk would do that. Jerk.
Yeah, no. Other than that, we're good.
Oh, I love it. Stu, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a good week. Just been grinding all week, and I'm going to continue to grind for the rest of the week.
I love that. What a take.
Grinding.
What a take. Talk about grinding. Oh, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, we are going to have some fun tonight.
Oh, man, I love it. Awesome. Well,
in all seriousness, though, I'm happy to be with you guys tonight.
I'm happy to be with you, sir. It's going to be a great night, of course, with a bunch of information-filled things that we can get out there to you all. Of course, we like to bring the facts to you all, and that's what we're going to be doing here tonight. So real quick, just want to make a quick plug, of course. Make sure you all are doing 5 things for us. Make sure you're liking, sharing, following, subscribing, and commenting across all of our social platforms, because what that does is it helps us tremendously with spreading our message and getting our page out there. Allows us to be able to, obviously have a bigger outreach and continue to influence people on helping them help themselves. Because I feel like that's what we mostly do here at this podcast.
Ready to say, I'll show you a bigger outreach. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. All right, we're gonna get it into serious mode eventually. I promise.
I love you. We'll get there sooner.
We'll get there. One of these days, I'll grow up.
But yeah, we got 3 things that we're going to be talking about tonight. So one of them is obviously going to be with the Justice Department and the new controversy going around Hunter Biden and some of the indictments that are going on there. Secondly, we're going to be talking about a bill that you all might know a little bit about called the Patriot Act. So we'll be discussing that a little bit. And last but not least, we will be talking about how Israel dropped white phosphorus on in a Lebanon attack. So it'll be a good discussion there for everybody. So other than that, gentlemen, anything else before we get started?
Are we finally gonna see a Biden get a lawsuit?
Let's find out.
Charges down the pipe?
Let's find out. The Department of Justice has filed new criminal charges against U.S. President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, accusing him of failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes while spending millions on a lavish lifestyle. Hunter Biden, who's 53, was charged with 3 felony and 6 misdemeanor tax offenses and faces up to 17 years in prison if convicted. The indictment reads that Hunter Biden engaged in a 4-year scheme to not pay at least $1.4 million in self-assessed federal taxes he owed for tax years 2016 through 2019. Instead, he spent a large sum of money of this money on drugs, escorts, luxury hotels, rental properties, exotic cars, clothing, and other personal items, including over $70,000 on drug rehabilitation. Hunter Biden's lawyer, Abe Lowell, said that his client had repaid his taxes in full and accused the U.S. Special Counsel David Weiss of reneging on a previous agreement and political bias. The White House declined to comment on the investigation. The indictment says Hunter Biden earned handsomely while serving on the board of Burisma, a Ukrainian industrial conglomerate, and a Chinese private equity fund. Hunter Biden has also been accused of leveraging his family's name to make money overseas. The indictment states that Biden had a legal obligation to pay taxes on all his income, including income earned in Ukraine from his services on the Burisma's board, fees generated by deal-making with the Chinese private equity fund, and income derived from his work as a lawyer and other sources. In 2018, Biden spent more than $1.8 million, including approximately $772,000 in cash withdrawals, $383,000 in payments to women, $151,000 in clothing and accessories. The indictment also states that Biden did not use these funds to pay his taxes, of course. Biden pleaded not guilty to the charges in Delaware in October, the first criminal prosecution of a sitting U.S. president's child. So, gentlemen, how do we feel about that?
So when I first saw that picture, all I could think of was there once was a man from Nantucket. because he had that Nantucket hat on. And
Right.
then I was like, okay, grow up, Ryan. But yeah, man, it sounds like he had a great time with his tax dollars.
It must have,
$383,000 to women. Like,
Yeah.
Good Lord, boy.
He had just a lot of money to spend on women and accessories and cars and all sorts of fun stuff, apparently.
You know, I disagree with his defense attorney, though. If his last name was anything but Biden, he wouldn't have thought he could get away with it.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
How you like that take, Nafe?
Absolutely. Of course, this is, again, the first criminal prosecution of a sitting U.S. president's child. So seeing that, why would you not think the odds are not in your favor to be able to get away with crimes like this, you know?
You know, this year has been a year of firsts. We had a former president, the first time a former president had ever been indicted.
Yep.
And now we have the first time that a sitting president's son is being indicted.
Yep.
And
got a lot going on this year.
Yeah, the Justice Department's been busy.
Yeah, they have been. Stu, I want to hear your take on this.
Yeah, for me, it's just about holding that standard from, regular civilians all the way up the chain to president and, what they would call elites. And just having the standard of if, you break a law, you're prosecuted just like anybody else. So, whether any of us here break a law or the president of the United States or their kids break a law, they're held to the same standard as we are, and justice is served.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree. Justice needs to be served regardless of what your name is and regardless of who you think you are. We all need to be held to the same laws that are governing our country, and nobody should be an exception.
Well, we have anti-discrimination laws. Right?
Yes.
Like you can't discriminate based on sex, race, political affiliation, or anything like that. I think that should also apply to how the law is applied.
Right.
There should be anti-discrimination in that as well. So, yeah, if you do something wrong, get in trouble. That's what I say. I agree 110,000% there, Stu.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So I guess just kind of wrapping this one up, like the talks about accountability is incredible. Finally, right? We're finally seeing somebody who's getting held accountable for obviously crimes they've committed.
We've seen it twice this year. I mean, if Trump committed those crimes, then he should be held accountable.
Absolutely.
And if Hunter committed these crimes, he should be held accountable. So yes, the accountability does seem to be raising. Yeah. And that is a good thing. A rising tide raises all ships. So accountability is definitely that rising tide.
Yeah. I feel like this tax evasion indictment with Hunter Biden obviously is marking a pretty significant leap in our pursuit for ethical governance, right? We've been thriving and pushing for that for so long. And even at the end of every episode, what do we talk about? Ethical congressional representatives, which don't exist. So, there's obviously issues within our political framework, and we're working on getting past that. And this is one of those steps towards it. So this development, I mean, to me, just is a huge shift. And I think it's going to create tidal waves going through our political environment. So thinking on the issues of these indictments makes you kind of wonder if it's going to reach out further than just the Biden family, right? Is it going to go further, and is it going to hit more people, even though we are currently seeing it with Trump? And might these actions, kind of, again, broaden more investigation into family names, into more ethical or non-ethical representatives that are in our political environment now. So just something to kind of talk about. Yeah. It'll be a good conversation because, because a lot of American citizens are going through this, and we're seeing these issues, and we want to start seeing the accountability, and it's finally coming to that.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is, though, I really, really, really hope that the Justice Department doesn't use these tax evasion charges to then get some kind of deal in place where they can't go after him for the collusion and corruption, because that would be terrible.
Right.
Like, I swear to God, if he goes up there, pleads guilty, gets some sweetheart deal, and then kills the probe into the corruption of the Biden family,
right,
I'm going to be really upset.
Yeah,
about
like
that.
Basically, Hunter Biden will charge you with this, we'll give you this, and then Hunter Biden's like, okay, but you can't go after my family.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
like
Just
cuts
kind
a
of making
deal for
agreements
it.
with the district attorneys or whoever's
like a plea
charging him.
bargain.
Yeah. Or I guess it'd be the federal government who's charging him at this point, right?
No, I still think it's the DA that brings it.
Okay.
I think because it has to be tried in the district that the offenses happen.
Yeah, that's right, because he pleaded not guilty to charges in Delaware in October. So I guess it would be the Delaware district where it happened.
It'd be
whoever
the
that
DAs.
DA is, don't you dare give him a sweetheart deal. We will call you out, and you know we will. Don't you dare.
You think we call people out here?
Oh, absolutely.
Wait, do we? I've never seen us call anybody out.
Not
ever.
once.
Not one time. Hey, don't do things wrong, and then we won't call you out.
But yeah, any other thoughts on this one, gentlemen, before we wrap it up, going to the next topic?
No, I don't think so. I think, like I said, I hope and pray that there's no plea bargain that then kills the corruption case that's being built against the Biden family.
I agree.
I just want the law applied evenly, whether you're a super rich billionaire or somebody that's really poor. You're on the left, you're on the right. No matter what your political views are, the law is applied evenly to you.
Yeah, I agree, because that's another thought on my mind is how far are we going to start reaching now? Are we going to start going after billionaires who aren't paying taxes and those who are evading taxes by offshore accounts or however they're doing it, the loopholes, or are we going to continue? I mean, obviously, at this point, we should go after more politicians. You shouldn't have a $175,000 salary and come out a millionaire. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Yeah, multi-millionaire.
Okay, I can completely understand going into Congress, having a $175,000 salary, writing a book about your ascension into Congress, getting the royalties off of that, and coming away with $4 or $5 million.
Sure,
I completely understand.
And having a great life.
You're using your likeness and your story to create income. Everybody should be able to do that.
Sure,
but coming away with $200 million or $250 million or $150 million, and I'm looking at you, McConnell, and I'm looking at you, Pelosi. And there's no way that you could ever.
Come on, they're just smart investors
that beat the market, 89% of the time. That's
that's sketchy.
A little bit. I know some really intelligent people. I know people that work on Wall Street. They come nowhere close to beating the market that fast, that much. So it's like, what's going on here?
You only wonder. So cool. Well, I'm glad we're all kind of in agreement on that, and we had a pretty good discussion around this one. So I really like where it's going, and I believe we're heading in the right direction, gentlemen. So we'll see where we go. Love it.
Hopefully.
On to the next one.
Yeah, we'll see.
On to the next one.
Let's talk about everybody's favorite, the Patriot Act.
Your favorite?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Not my favorite.
The House of Representatives has scrapped votes on 2 bills that would narrow the scope of a powerful surveillance tool known as Section 702. After a heated debate among Republicans, the dispute over which of the 2 measures to overhaul the law known as Section 702 should be put to the floor and has unpended Speaker Mike Johnson's plans to have the House vote on both measures this week and send the Senate whichever one secured a larger majority. Both parties have determined to impose limits on the program, which sometimes collects the private messages of Americans in contact with foreign surveillance targets. Progressive congressional Democrats and Republicans, allies of former President Donald Trump, have backed a Judiciary Committee bill that would sharply curtail the law while enhancing protections for Americans' privacy rights. Meanwhile,
wouldn't that be nice?
Centrists and national security hawks have backed the Intelligence Committee bill and would enact more modest changes, denouncing the more reform-minded legislation is likely to put the country in greater danger from terrorists, hackers, spies, and other threats. The intelligence bill, which would allow the government to use information collected from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FIS, to protect Americans and prosecute crimes, has been criticized by the supporters of the judiciary version of seriously flawed. Representatives Michael R. Turner, chairman of the Intelligence Committee, argue that the rival bill would limit the government's ability to use information to protect Americans and prosecute crimes. The bill would also make Section 702 information inadmissible in criminal prosecutions for crimes such as child pornography, human trafficking, murder, and money laundering. See, I disagree with that. You want to be able to use that, especially for those crimes.
Yeah, but then that gives them a huge scope of surveillance.
Where it gets tough.
It is. Because, like, you would think that you would want that.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, that means that they're spying on you at all times.
It's difficult. Representative Warren Davidson accused Turner of misrepresenting the Judiciary Committee's bill, arguing the proponents of the Intelligence Committee bill want to basically be like a police state where you can keep not getting a warrant. The FBI has already adopted internal reforms that the intelligence bill would codify as law, while cutting down by 90% the number of Bureau personnel with access to the raw database of intercepted communications. The competing judiciary bill would require officials to get a warrant before querying the repository using the Americans' names and other identifier. Not a bad idea. Privacy advocates argue that the warrants are necessary as a constitutional principle and to avoid abuses, but Biden administration officials argue that they would strip the program's effectiveness and endanger the country, including against terrorist threats from the Israel-Hamas war. The annual defense authorization bill contains a short-term extension of the program without reforms until mid-April. The bill is scheduled for a vote later this week. The extension would allow the surveillance court to issue a new annual orders, allowing the program to operate through April 2025, even if the underlying law lapses after mid-April 2024. Some conservative lawmakers, including Representative Chip Roy, have opposed a short-term extension, calling it a jam-through extension of Section 702. So, I like the thought of being able to get a warrant, and I can kind of understand where the argument from the Biden administration comes, like, oh, we could potentially, put ourselves at risk with being able to intercept, terrorism, international terrorism coming here into the U.S. But at the same time, if that's the case, then let's talk about how you're getting the warrant. Let's go down to the root cause. Why would it be such an issue to be able to get that warrant, to be able to immediately find out what's going on if you have very solid and valuable proof, right? That's
the key word right there, Nave. Very solid proof.
Yeah.
And the thing is if you don't have that proof, then they're just surveilling you for no reason.
Exactly.
And hopes of getting you on something.
Yeah.
So that just becomes like an overarching, like, just way of doing things that is not ethical. It's not, it's not, what's the word? Not a good thing for American citizens. And it's not a good thing for people around the world. Like, truthfully, what I feel is we should end the war on terrorism and start the war on information.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the thing is you have all of this information that's bouncing around constantly. There should be something that is dedicated to filtering out bad information or false information. And that I feel like would be a good thing. But just surveilling people just to do it, and having, like what Snowden talked about, just the what was it, the NSA and the FBI and all these organizations that are just, they've got your phone tapped at all times. That's not cool. That's not cool at all, and that needs to be taken away.
Yeah. I mean, I'll agree. So, like, it's a very multifaceted issue here, because you have a positive side to it, but you also have a negative side to it. So,
such as any dual-edged sword.
Is there a way of being able to leverage it while, fighting foreign terrorism, and then also being able to not go back to instances in years past where, again, we just talked about Snowden, where his situation comes up and he comes out and tells you the truth, and he all of a sudden is an enemy against the state. So
now he's in Russia.
So is there a solution that we can find to be able to balance this and allow this this extension to be something positive, and also, not abuse it at the same time? Do you all see anything like that, Stu? I'd like to hear your take on that.
And this current system, I don't see that, what you're asking, but
fair enough.
If they would, apply the Constitution, I don't think that our government should be able to just spy on anybody with no reason. There needs to be some kind of checks and balances with this. They need to go through a process. If there's probable cause and they have evidence, they need to go get a warrant. And like you said, Ryan, with the Snowden situation, I mean, he revealed, you know, a lot of things that our government was doing, and I don't even think any of them were held accountable. You know, Snowden was basically exiled from the country, and he's yet to return. So,
and they'll still hit him with espionage.
Yeah, so I don't, you know, you asked me that question, I just know because they've continued the status quo even when people know about it, it seems. So, in my opinion, yeah, there needs to be a reform to this. I understand, like, you know, if there's people in this country wanting to commit terrorist acts and acts of harm, you know, of course you can see, you know, the good side of something like this, but we've also seen the bad side. So, like you said, it's about finding that balance, and I think honest people are willing to talk about that and find that balance, but it just seems like our government is not willing to do that at this point.
Right.
That's the problem, though, is honest people. We need to get more honest people in charge of programs like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing is this. I was thinking about this as we were doing our research this week, and we decided that this was going to be one of the clips that we used. Everybody who stands on or opposed to Amendment 2A, right? They say the founding fathers would have never foreseen what weapons are nowadays and how they're being used. And that because of that, we should, you know, strip Amendment 2A.
Right.
Or, you know, put laws and common sense gun laws, stuff like that.
Yep.
Well, where are the common sense surveillance laws?
Yep.
Because I would be willing to bet, and I'm not a betting man. I don't gamble, but I would be willing to bet that the founding fathers would be more enraged by a program like this than what Amendment 2A now stands for.
I'd 100% agree.
Because as weaponry has increased or progressed, we need more progressed weaponry to defend ourselves. I think that the founding fathers would be all over that. But this is unfathomable to, you know, the founding fathers. You mean the government's in your house at all times?
Yeah.
No, I think they're rolling over in their graves on this.
Oh yeah. And there's no way they could have predicted the giant leaps in technology that we have. Our computing power has gone up trillions of times, even ever since we first landed on the moon. I mean, the amount that we have been able to do with technology and AI and what it's been able to create is astounding.
Since we first landed on the moon, Nave?
Well, oh crap.
Since we first landed on the moon, Nave?
Yeah.
You think we landed on the moon?
Oh man. We getting into conspiracy time?
No,
what?
I'm not getting into conspiracy time. You said the conspiracy when you said we landed on the moon.
I love it. I love it.
Is that where we found the aliens?
Ooh, that's how we know they're here. Yeah.
Here's my argument against that. I'm sorry, and I got to throw it out there before we move on.
No, I love it.
But like you said, our computing power has gone up trillions of times, right?
Yeah.
But yet we can't make it back to the moon.
It's an interesting thought.
It's an interesting
thought. Maybe there's obviously a reason.
You know what else is interesting? How those videos of the moon landings had wires. Just saying.
Oh my God.
But back to the surveillance.
Back to surveillance.
Let's put some common sense surveillance laws in place.
I agree. No, I agree, and I think part of that step, part of going forward, would be doing exactly what this said is potentially putting into where you can get these warrants, right? And if you have that proof, if you have that solid evidence, no judge is going to sit there and be like, yeah, we're not going to give you the warrant to be able to do the. No, I mean, come on, right? Like there has to be common sense and then also truthful but good ethical people in these powerful positions That's where we're lacking.
See,
We don't have
absolute
ethical
power
people.
corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
And so the thing is, you could put a good ethical person in there, but if you don't have a balance or a checks and balance system in
Right.
place, then that person is going to be corrupted by the power. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
So just like the presidency, just like Congress, well, we would hope Congress would be.
Congress.
There should be term limits on any of the positions that hold this type of power.
Absolutely. Yeah, no disagreements there, because even like with the Supreme Court, with and theoretically, when it comes to our congressional members, we have the ability to vote them out. But again,
you don't have the ability to vote a Supreme Court justice
you don't
out.
you don't have the ability to do that. But then also, it's still, the math doesn't math. We have 25, like 22, 25% approval rates of Congress, and yet somehow people keep getting reelected 80% of the time. That doesn't make sense.
The math
Ain't
doesn't
mathin'.
You also don't vote on a president's cabinet or any of those kind of things.
No, you don't. They put them in there themselves. Yeah.
Well, and that's a little different because you don't vote on the cabinet, but the cabinet also has the same term limits as the president for the most part, because the next party that comes in
Isn't putting them up there.
normally is not putting them back in the position that they were in.
Yeah, that's a good
So
point.
they're not staying in that position for 20, 30,
But
40 years.
What is the Victoria Nuland?
Victoria Nuland.
Victoria Nuland. We've talked about her before. She's like over, like geopolitics.
She's a state of political affairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's been in multiple administrations, left and right.
But has she held the same job?
I'm pretty sure she has.
Let's see.
Because if she hasn't held the same job, then she's basically cycling through different jobs. And I don't have a problem with that. Like, if that's what I've said from the beginning, if you enact term limits on Congress, right? If you start off in the House, you spend 8 years or 2 terms in the House, and then you move over to the Senate and you run for Senate and you get elected, and then you spend 2 terms there, and then you're a popular person, and or you've got good policy, and then you run for president and you get elected in there for 2 terms. You're not doing the same job, whether it is kind of in the same vein, but you're progressing through the political system from job to job. And I would like to believe that if you're doing a good enough job to get elected to all those positions, then that's different. But I see where you're talking about, like with the cabinet members and just being appointed. But if it's not the same job, then I don't have as much of a problem with it.
Yeah, so from what I'm finding, so I get this straight from state.gov, the U.S. Department of State. So she's been a U.S. diplomat for 33 years. Ambassador Nuland served as Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs from September 2013 until January 2017 under Obama and Secretary Kerry. She was State Department spokesperson during Secretary Hillary Clinton's tenure and U.S. ambassador to NATO during President George Bush's second term, 2005-2008. Nuland served as a special envoy and chief negotiator on the Treaty of Conventional Arms Control in Europe from 2010 to 2011, and as a deputy national security advisor to Vice President Cheney from 2003 to 2005. In addition to 2 tours at NATO in Brussels, she has served overseas in Russia, China, Mongolia, and various assignments at the State Department of Washington. Ambassador Nuland has a BA in history from Brown University.
Yeah, so I'm just saying she's one of those people that aren't elected that do have some power in our government.
Right. I see what you're saying there. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It gets tough there. And maybe we should have term limits for every single position, right? Maybe.
I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah,
at
not
all.
opposed to it. It's just those would be the discussions. First, we got to hit the root causes, which would be term limits for senators, U.S. congressional members, representatives,
and then we can trickle it down.
Yeah, exactly. We can figure out the rest from
we
there.
need to get term limits in place on the big ones.
Term limits and age limits. I'll be honest. I'm going to say it. Age limits. Like we really do.
ageist.
I know. I'm a horrible person. What can I say?
Did you see? This is kind of maybe old news, but speaking of like ageist, but did you see that the CEO of Google called Elon Musk a speciesist? Because Elon Musk is trying to lead the charge for like reform around AI.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the CEO of Google was like, oh, he's a speciesist.
That would be, wow. That man's got some guts.
He's got some issues.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Like AI is not a sentient being.
That's really weird.
Right?
Yeah.
Just goes to show you, man.
Yeah, and Elon Musk coming out saying like I like effing humanity.
Yeah. Elon, he can be the man on Monday, but then be like, "What are you doing on Tuesday?"
That's wild.
That's Elon for you.
All right, cool. So we touched up on that. Everybody cool with Patriot Act? Essentially, we good on that. Covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I just want to say we can't have our government spying on our citizens that haven't even broken the law. Like that's
I
just
agree.
unconstitutional to me, and there needs to be some kind of common sense checks and balance on this thing. And I hope they sort it out, because it is, I mean, that's why it's important when tragedies happen, you know, a 9/11 or a pandemic, you know, when these things happen, that's why it's important to hold on to your freedoms, because I do think that, you know, the government will push something forward and say, you know, it's for the safety of others, but you know, you give them an inch and they take a lot
Take a
more than
mile.
that. So that's why it's very important to just be grounded in the Constitution and know what it stands for. Because long term, I think you're a lot better, you know, having those views than not. You know, protect freedom at all costs, no matter what it is. Freedom, in my opinion, is definitely more important than safety. I mean, I know that might be a hot take, but I mean, freedom is the foundation of this country.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't disagree. You know, it's an interesting discussion you can have, because of course you want security, but I would almost argue that security relies on you as an individual, with you and your family, being that you are given the freedom to do so, you know, within this country. So I can kind of see both ends there. You know, it would be an interesting discussion.
I don't think there are two ends to that, Nafe.
You don't think?
No, I think freedom should be absolute.
Absolute. I like
because
that.
And that's what we were founded on. Yes, we have rules that we all play by, but freedom should not come at the expense, or security should not come at the expense of freedom.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we all kind of have like this social contract that we all agree upon being here in the United States, and being able to follow that, you know, kind of puts us all in the same bucket essentially. And like you all said, not sacrificing your security for freedom. I like that.
Everybody,
or vice versa.
Everybody wants safety. Everybody wants to be protected, etc.
Go buy a gun.
But yeah, we can't. You can't give up your freedoms for certain things. Like that's just my red line. I just refuse to do that. I don't care what the situation is. I just refuse to give up my freedoms, because I know how important they are, and I know what things can lead to. I mean, look at other countries.
And seeing after this pandemic how quickly they can get taken away.
Speaking of the pandemic and security and freedom and things like that, if you pull back, right, and you look at it from a 30,000 foot view, what is in the government's best interest? Us sitting in our houses where they have surveillance laws that are in place that allow them to see our every move. Right?
Right.
What's not in our government's best interest?
Allowing people to be free.
Freedom. Where people can move freely, do whatever, you know, do what they want to do, get around, go places, do things like that. When the pandemic struck, and after, you know, the two weeks to stop or flatten the curve or whatever happened, and then it just kept going, I was like, oh, that's when it became pretty apparent to me that, oh, this was a play to try to eliminate some of our freedoms.
Right.
And I'm glad that we as a nation said enough's enough.
Yeah.
And now we need to say enough's enough when it comes to the surveillance stuff.
I agree.
And
I love it.
Just one more thing I'll add to that. It's sad too, because, and we talked about this probably months ago when, you know, COVID was still a topic and stuff like that, but I totally lost my train of thought. Talking about COVID.
Yeah, we were talking about COVID.
I don't know. Move on.
Move on?
Yeah.
All right, cool. If it comes back to you, just let me know.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Why is it still suspended? It said the 41 mark. Oh, maybe it's going to be 42. Hold on.
Yeah, maybe. All right, let's talk about Israel real quick. So We're going to talk about how they use U.S. supplied white phosphorus on a attack in southern Lebanon. So Israel used, like I just said, U.S. supplied white phosphorus munitions in October attack in southern Lebanon, injuring at least 9 civilians. Washington Post analysis of shell fragments found in a small village, Dahiria, found 3 155 millimeter artillery shell rounds fired into the village, which incinerated at least 4 homes. The rounds eject felt wedges saturated with white phosphorus, which burns at high temperatures, producing billowing smoke that obscures troop movements. It can stick to skin, causing potentially fatal burns and respiratory damage. The use of white phosphorus near civilian areas is generally prohibited under international humanitarian law. Production codes found on the shells match the nomenclature used by the U.S. military to categorize domestically produced munitions, showing they were made by ammunition depots in Louisiana and Arkansas in 1989 and 1992. The M825 smoke rounds fired from 155 millimeter howitzers have legitimate use on the battlefield, including signaling friendly troops, marking targets, and producing white smoke that conceals soldiers. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Signaling troops, marking, blah, blah, blah. The weapons are part of billions of dollars in the U.S. munitions and flow to Israel every year and have fueled Israel's war on Hamas militants in the Gaza Strip. Israeli forces shelled a town in Syria, causing residents to be trapped in their homes for hours. The attack, now known as the Black Night, left many fleeing after the shelling stopped, returning after a week-long pause, and returning when it resumed. A 29-year-old farmer, Uday Abu Sari, suffered respiratory problems for days after the attack. Emergency services advised using water-soaked face masks, but the entire village became white. White phosphorus, a chemical that ignites when in contact with oxygen, can cause severe injuries and damage internal organs, according to the Human Rights Watch report. The Israeli military fired white phosphorus shells into the evening, and as smoke would have little practical use at night, and there were no Israeli troops on the Lebanese side of the border to mask the smoke screens. The Israel Defense Forces stated the white phosphorus shells launched by Israel are used to create smoke screens, not for targeting or causing fires. The same manufacturing codes also appear on white phosphorus shells lined up next to Israeli air artillery by the city of Sderot near the Gaza Strip. The use of white phosphorus smoke is permitted if used for legitimate military operations, but its misuse can violate laws of armed conflict. Rights groups have warned that its use should be restricted around civilians because fire and smoke can be spread to populated areas. The United States is not conducting real-time assessments of Israel's adherence of the laws of war, and it's unclear when the munitions were delivered to Israel. Remnants of the sticky black chemical littered the ground 40 days after the attack and combusted when residents kicked at it. In 2009, Human Rights Watch documented Israel's use of the U.S.-made white phosphorus munitions in violation of international law in its 22-day offensive in Gaza. Israel has used the munition over 60 times in Lebanon's border area in the past 2 months, according to the ACLED data. Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati reported that the use has killed civilians, damaged over 5 million square meters of forest and farmland, and damaged thousands of olive trees. This is pretty bad, especially if we're going to be talking, just from the very beginning of all this, where it talked about how, let me see if I can find where it says, the use of white phosphorus near civilian areas is generally prohibited under international humanitarian law. Now we are stooping to levels, and I say we because we are backing with our funds and with our ammunition and with the white phosphorus, we are backing international humanitarian laws being broken by launching this, allowing Israel to launch this into these civilian populated areas. I understand the sense of urgency of wanting to defeat Hamas, which I don't know if you all saw, but earlier in the week, they've actually started using seawater to flood the tunnels where Hamas is. Great. No issues there. You're actually going after the terrorists and not the civilians. No problems. This is where it's starting to get tricky, though.
I never understood why attacking from above to try to get to tunnels was strategy that was in place.
Yeah, I just don't get
It
it.
just didn't make sense to me because, I mean, even with bunker buster bombs and stuff like that, they only go to a certain depth.
Right.
So getting to those tunnels, which are, hundreds of feet deep, doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I've been confused on this myself.
But opening up seawater and flooding those bad boys out,
I'm all for it.
Yeah,
you're not hurting civilians, and you're getting the Hamas headquarters absolutely flooded. And then the crazy part is Israel built these tunnels. We've talked about this, where Israel built these tunnels. They should know the ins and outs, and they should know the tactics to be able to flood them out. That's my thoughts. Because, utilizing white phosphorus as a weapon is just an absolutely lethal tactic, and one that invokes
sounds
some
like it's almost
deep
as bad
concern.
as napalm.
Yeah, I mean, it's a deeply concerning issue in this war right now. Seeing these extreme measures is again extremely concerning, especially amidst the escalating tensions all in the Middle East. Right now, we are seeing more and more countries get pulled into this war, and eventually, as we see more countries getting pulled in, is this going to start scaling up to a point where we consider this World War III? When are we going to start seeing peace talks?
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not, because we need to start getting to a ceasefire, a peaceful ceasefire immediately.
And can you imagine if the amount of money and resources that is spent globally on war and killing other humans,
what we could do,
was turned into progressing the human race as a whole?
Gosh,
man, that would be absolute.
It would be incredible. I mean,
it really would be. Because
be
the
able to
world
do
is
so
a
much.
big enough place that everybody should be able to live good lives.
How much of our Earth is water? What is it?
What is it? 72%?
72%, some of that nature?
No, maybe that's the human body. I think actually the Earth's surface is
like
covered
90?
like 90% water. Can you look that up?
Yeah, I'm going to look it up real quick. Do you know how much exploration we could do on water surfaces alone, and learning how to create self-sustaining cities, environments on water, if we could just take some, like even a fraction of this money that's spent towards war?
Or maybe we throw some of this money at, desalinating water.
Right.
Like how do we do that effectively to where everybody in the world can have fresh drinking water? Because there is so much water on this planet that it wouldn't be very hard.
So about 71% of the Earth's surface is water
so I was
covered,
right.
and the oceans hold about 96.5% of that water. Yeah, you were right. Yeah, 71. And
Cool.
then
I said
think
72.
I think it's the human body is somewhere around 80% or something.
I think that's in the 70s as
Now
well.
I got to look it up.
I think it's like 70. I'm gonna say 76% water.
But Stu, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. And I do remember what I was gonna say earlier when I lost my train of thought. I was just gonna reiterate that it's important for government to stay honest with the people, which I know that's like a pipe dream, but because if you're not honest during a time of crisis, when a next crisis happens, the people just, they don't believe you, even if you are end up telling the truth. It's like the boy who cried wolf.
Cried wolf, yeah.
But moving on to this white phosphorus, since the beginning of this war or conflict, whatever you want to call it, we've now seen both sides commit war crimes, and it's escalation again, like we talk about. It's week after week seems to be escalating, but like Ryan said, attacking from the air. If we can see a different strategy from Israel, actually going after Hamas instead of targeting, certain public infrastructures like hospitals and schools, if we can see a different strategy of them actually, doing some groundwork and going after the ones who actually did the attack on October 6th or October 7th, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I'm in support of that because they came across there and they killed innocent people, and Israel has every right to retaliate and go after Hamas, people that attack them. But you cross my red line too when you just start. You have no plan and you just continue to bomb random places where civilians are living. That's their home. And if it's your first time watching, I understand that Israel controls that area of Gaza, and I've been against that for ever since we started talking about this topic. I think somehow they need to come to a solution to this. Israel can't control those people, and Palestine can't control Israel people. So I don't know a solution, but we have to find something where people can have freedom, and there's also innocent people not dying in the thousands. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Tens of thousands.
The indiscriminate killing is appalling. It really is.
Yeah.
When you're just killing without having, like you said, a plan in place, that's when it's just like, man, what is going on? And I get it. Like, war is ugly, and especially when one side does have a history of using people as kind of human shields.
Yeah.
That's crazy, and you've got to figure out ways to flush them out and get them out from behind their human shields.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just killing people who don't deserve to die. And that's terrifying.
Yeah. And what did we just talk about, Stu? Right before we started up this episode, who was it that just voted on a unanimous ceasefire? We were literally just talking about the UN. The UN voted on a unanimous ceasefire over in the Middle East. So even the UN now coming to this and saying, look, we have to start finding a way to bring peace to the Middle East, and especially in this conflict right now, because it's getting to a point where too many civilians are dying, and it's not beneficial to anybody. So I'm loving to see this. The vote. So I'll just read a little bit of it here. The vote in the 193 member world body was 153 in favor, 10 against, and 23 abstentions. And ambassadors and the other diplomats burst into applause as the final numbers were displayed. The United States and Israel were joined in opposing the resolution by 8 countries: Austria, Czechia, Guatemala, Liberia, Micronesia, Nauru, Papua New Guinea, and Paraguay. So my question, I kind of want to go back up to this. Who were the 10 that were against?
They just named them. United States, Israel, Austria, Czechia, Guatemala, Liberia,
joined in opposing the resolution.
Yeah, Micronesia, Nauru, and Papua New Guinea and Paraguay.
Now, who are those 8 representatives? Because I would love to have a conversation with them about how, death is good, according to them, and how a ceasefire is not. I mean, okay, maybe not. That's what they mean. They want retaliation, and they want to destroy Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not working. You're killing civilians. And don't get me wrong, like you said, Israel has, like Stuart said, Israel has every right to go against Hamas. And we have every right to try to get rid of Hamas. But your plans aren't working. You're killing civilians. We need to re-strategize. We need to rethink. We need to regroup.
So to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, though, what happens the next time? If you can't get them out now,
right,
then they multiply in numbers because of everything that has happened now. And what happens the next time?
I guess my strategy would be take a brief ceasefire, allow Hamas to think that they finally have a time where they can rest, and then find a strategy to be able to come back, pick out who the Hamas terrorists are versus the Palestinian individual civilians, and get better intelligence, and then go in and strike first. It's a thought. I mean, no, but devil's advocate, you're 100% right. Because what if you just stop and then they come back and hit you again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's historically what has happened.
What terrorist groups will do, yeah.
They'll regroup. They'll,
get their numbers.
Grow in numbers, and then they'll, attack.
And the big issue is you have Hamas that's creating literal propaganda videos, and they're spreading it amongst the Palestinian people. So they're trying to find ways to turn these people against Israel.
Well,
And
it shouldn't be hard. I mean, with them just bombing hospitals and bombing, now granted, like the information that we're getting, how accurate is it?
Right.
You know what I mean? Are they actually indiscriminately bombing hospitals and things like that? We don't know.
Right. Well,
and no, we probably never will. But with the amount of people that Israel has killed, it shouldn't be hard for Hamas to grow their numbers.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. It definitely wouldn't be hard at all. And I like that devil's advocate take. It really puts a good perspective in why this war is so difficult right now.
It is.
So.
It's a very difficult place to be. I kind of would think maybe the most effective way would be drone strikes, right?
Yeah.
But like, I'm talking little tiny drones with like, they get programmed to recognize someone's face, and then they fly and they, hit the person in the head with an explosion or something.
Yeah.
That would be the most, I feel like,
efficient
way to do it. Because we have the technology to do it. You just do facial recognition technology on a small thing, charge a C4 and put it on a drone that's this big.
And the thing is, like, we found Osama bin Laden. We knew who his associates were.
Yeah, but it took us a decade.
Yeah, that's not.
It took us a decade. Now, the one that is more impressive is how fast we found
Saddam Hussein. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, it can be done.
Yeah.
But what type of resources are you trying to pour into this thing now?
Right. That's the other thing, right? Because us three, as we can all agree, we're tired of pouring our resources into other countries and not worrying about ourselves. So,
I mean, didn't Zelensky just like basically come and beg Congress for military aid?
I think he's still doing it, isn't he?
Is he's still doing it right now, right?
I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100%, but I know within the past week he was here begging for some more aid.
Today or yesterday, he talked to defense contractors.
Yeah. I mean, he's needing the help, but again, like we discussed,
Lockheed's over here like,
we got something
Northrop
for you.
Grumman's like, hey boys,
I mean,
Boeing,
but like we talked
Raytheon.
before. Raytheon, but
Raytheon.
When you have a fighting force of the average age of 45, I mean, you're going to be losing a war, and that's just where Ukraine's at right now. He needs to find more bodies. He doesn't need to get more money. He needs more people who are willing to stand up for Ukraine and fight.
Tech.
Or more tech, yeah. More tech to outsmart
If he
Russia.
was smart, he'd be going up to Boston, to the Technical Institute up there, and get some of these robots.
Yep.
Like, let's just, unleash Terminator on the world.
I mean, your country would just be indebted to us forever, but take them with you.
And then we just have a kill code for those robots that if they try to turn them around and do something against us, it's like we
don't
hit a
work
button.
like that.
Woo.
Look at
But
that.
also, do you guys see a world where, that Israel will just continually keep fighting Hamas, because realistically, you're not going to get rid of terrorism in the world.
Right.
Well, according to the Bible,
Oh man.
I'm going here. If the Middle East, so if a man comes out, what does it say in Revelation? It says a man will come out of Mecca and usher in peace in the Middle East.
Yep.
And that is the signal of the end times.
Yeah.
So
maybe, I don't know. I mean, if you look at it from a religious perspective, I don't know. It's interesting thoughts.
If that happens, you better get right.
It's just, I don't know. And, we're not going to beat terrorism, and it just seems like I don't know if they can come to a two-state solution or whatever solution they can, both sides can come to an agreement.
Right.
It just seems like that's so far off. It's way off. It's same with Russia and Ukraine. Like, all these things are just way off. And, I think it has to do a lot with, too, just all these, there's like this big buildup of all these issues that just, it's a snowball, and it becomes this, big thing one day. Everybody acts like they're an expert in all these wars and conflicts, and they're
Right.
not. I mean, these things have been going on for a very long time. So it
Thousands
sucks.
of years.
It sucks seeing all these things, and I wish that people could get along and agree to something, but I don't
Well-
know. I don't know where you go from here.
To your point, Stu, you're never gonna beat terrorism as long as atrocities are still being committed.
Yeah.
Because if one side, because one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, is usually how it works out. And so, if you still have atrocities being committed around the world, that's going to breed quote unquote terrorists, because those people are going to revolt. They're going to go after who went after them in the first place. So again, the world is a big place. We should all be able to live on this earth in peace. But theoretically, I mean, but you have these little hubs all around the world. And if you look at it, the 30,000 foot view, actually in this case, like go out 30,000 miles and look at the earth. The earth is huge, and the places that humans inhabit on the earth are all the, the hubs of like rivers and where ports and things like that are all concerned. And that's why there's conflict, because this side wants the resources, or this side wants the port, or this side wants the access, or whatever the case may be, or fresh water. I think a lot of the world's problems would be solved by desalinating water.
Right.
And I've had I got into a discussion with this about this topic with somebody else. If there is a water supply large enough that everybody in the world has fresh water, then you don't have to go to these central hubs anymore. Everybody could spread out a little bit and you wouldn't have these conflicts. But we're not pouring the resources into finding things like that, finding solutions for the human race. We're finding solutions for nations. And I don't know, maybe I'm talking like a globalist here, but
nah.
It's I think if we start looking at the human race as a whole and what we can do to better the human race, all people, then I think a lot of these conflicts start solving themselves.
Yeah, so that doesn't sound like a globalist idea to me. That sounds logical. That sounds like what we need to be doing. We need to stop pumping money into war and hatred and killing each other, and we need to start finding a way to where the talks of overpopulation isn't even considered anymore, because we're being able to expand into new land, whether it be intergalactic or within our land in general. And like you said, across water bases. I mean, seriously, there's unlimited amounts of potential the human race could accomplish if we could just pull our damn minds and money together and start spending it on useful things.
And I mean, if they really want to go to war, like, let's go colonize other planets and have wars in space.
With the aliens, exactly.
Like, I mean, at least then you're not like striking people at home.
Yeah.
Wars would be fought in space. And that just makes sense to me. If you really wanted to pump money into something, that go out there and blow up each other's battleships. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know.
And it's funny too, because like we can sit here and have these conversations. We want to find a solution to this. We want to stop mass killing globally, but it's like, to some viewers maybe, and to some people out there, it just seems like a naive view of the world.
Maybe. And
I mean, it could be, but I mean, I can't look at the world any other way. I can't. I mean, obviously you can look at this violence, and violence has always existed in the world, but just like, I don't think I'll ever be numb to it and just accept it. Like, I choose not to.
Right.
Because I don't want to. Like, I, believe in a better world. I know there's never some perfect utopia. Don't get me wrong, but I believe in progress.
Well, Nafe believes that communism is perfect utopia.
Touche. I love it. No, I mean, yes,
I'm not gonna let you live that down, Nafe.
Oh, never. I mean, I agree with you, right? It when you look at it from a perspective like that, you're able to. Like, you just don't look at the world as so black and white. You're able to look at it with a gray area and be able to say, look, I believe that we can do better. I think that the human race can be better. And we don't need to resort to such violent tendencies. Like, we're able to have enough space for everybody. We're all allowed to appreciate where we should be. So I mean, I agree with you. It's just, unfortunately, getting the rest of the world to agree with us.
I mean, to
The
simplify
hardest part.
it really comes down to terrible leadership and terrible communication. Just to simplify it all, as humans, we do not know how to communicate with each other, and there are way more terrible leaders in this world than there are good leaders.
Oh, absolutely. And how these people become leaders is the craziest part to me, and how they are continued to allowed to keep those leadership positions.
You know, it's kind of crazy to me. And when you said, we just don't know how to communicate to each other. And I saw something, an article the other day, and I can't remember where it was from, so please don't quote me on it. But apparently 50% of people walk around with no inner monologue.
How?
I mean, can you guys talk to yourself? Do
All
you
the time.
have that inner voice in
I do
there?
that all day long.
So, yeah, 30 to 50% regularly think to themselves about internal monologue. That means 50% of people, or potentially 70% of people, walk around with no internal thought.
Wow.
Which
there's
means
no way.
That's like, okay,
Maybe
so
that's the separation there.
that might be the separation.
Interesting. That's actually really interesting. So you're telling me we got 30 to 50% NPCs walking around this world?
No. That's saying that 30 to 50% of people walk around with an internal monologue. That means that a potential 70% of people do not have an internal monologue.
Oh, wow. Okay. That only have an internal monologue. Wow. Okay. Wow. That's
Kind of crazy, right?
That's crazy to me, because I'm sitting here thinking about things literally
Constantly.
24/7. Like my brain
All over
never
the place.
turns off. Yeah.
Ever.
I mean, thousands of thoughts per minute. Like, seriously, it just does not stop. The thought that other people don't have that, I'm kind of envious, honestly. Just like the ability to turn off your brain.
You could dumb me down. I'd be cool with it.
Yeah, like, come on now.
But no, maybe that's where the disconnect comes from.
Maybe.
Because if you don't have an internal monologue, that means you're not talking to yourself about your actions.
Interesting.
And
Like, you can't self-reflect, you think?
you can't
Yeah,
self-reflect.
that's exactly what that means. Wow. That's really interesting.
Perhaps that's why conflict exists, because you have some people who can think to themselves and reflect on themselves and talk to themselves and say, "No, that was of the things that I've done in my life, that probably wasn't the best."
Was
And
not
then you
the
have other
smartest.
people that are like,
Yeah, I did that.
"No, they don't even say that. It's just blank."
Jeez, I can't even imagine. That's
Crazy, right?
unfathomable to me.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, when I saw that, and then you see all these like conflicts and stuff happening, and you talk to some people and you hear some of their views, and it's like, I wonder if that person's an NPC.
Yeah, seriously, like that's a very interesting thought there. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because
Well,
I'm
I
gonna have to
wonder
dig into that.
How many people in our government have inner monologues? Because
They've got to be all non.
Seriously,
well, yeah, because
Close
they
to
can come
it.
out and say something, and then that comes out. They always hide behind our information at hand. We made the best choice, but anything that they get wrong, they never come out and be like, "Look, guys, we got this wrong. We take accountability for it." That never happens. You
No.
never hear a politician say, "Look, I got this wrong. Yeah, I'm wrong on this." Like, that would be like the end of civilization if we saw that one day.
Could you
Whoa.
imagine if we had like the scene from The Hangover where he's like, he calls the wife and he's like, "Yeah, we messed up." Like,
Yeah.
if a politician stood up there and was like, "Yeah, we
messed
dropped
up."
the ball on this one."
And I think
Yeah,
they
right,
would
dude.
gain
What?
huge respect from all of us if our politicians, our government as a whole, would just come out sometimes and be like, "Yeah, we messed up. We got this wrong." I think that would go a long way.
It just shows that they're human.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And like we all make mistakes.
Yeah, and we understand that they are.
Own your mistake and move forward and grow from it.
Exactly, and that's what I love to hear.
So, I mean, yeah, dude. It's
Don't hide behind that ego.
exactly.
That sounds like a perfect way to end this episode, gentlemen. We wrapped up some pretty good things. We talked about some incredible stuff. So
And we're back on TikTok.
And we're back on TikTok,
back.
yeah. For not getting banned on our backup account. I love that. So
I'm surprised that we haven't been banned already.
yeah, no
Like,
joke.
when I brought up the 50% of people don't have the internal monologue, I thought they were gonna disinformation.
That's a wild thing though. I'm gonna look into that a little bit more. I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, because I didn't even know that. So fantastic conversation, great discussion, awesome discourse, gentlemen. Let's start wrapping it up. So, with that being said,
You wrap it up.
of course, I want to first off say, please make sure you're doing 5 things for us: liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, and following on all of our social medias. These social medias include Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok,
The Royal Rumble.
love that, and Twitch. We are currently on all those platforms, and we're still expanding, looking to get on other platforms as well. If you all have any suggestions for where we can go, please help us out with that. We would love to hear. So please make sure you all follow us on all of our socials. And obviously, you know, what we do here, we like to spread. We like to get around to as many people as possible to help become an influence for you all and to be able to bring data, information, facts to you, so you don't have to, so you have the ability to be able to go out and do your research yourself, challenge us, and have good, honest discourse. So please remember to share this with people you love, but also to share this with the people that you don't love, because we all have more in common than what we don't, and I truly believe that.
Before you go any further,
Please.
tonight's episode is episode 149.
Yes.
We do 1 episode a week. That means that we have had, next week will be 150 weeks of the Fact Is podcast.
That's exactly right.
That's nearly 3 years worth of episodes.
It's been a long time.
It has.
It's been a long time.
That's
A
been
lot of
awesome.
evolution, a lot of growth.
Like I just
love
wanted
it.
to, like I saw the 149 number. I was like, oh my gosh, 150. That's basic. Like at 156, that will be
Here's that inner
3 full
monologue at work.
years.
Yeah, there is that inner monologue.
See, if you don't have an inner monologue, man, you need to go see a therapist.
You need to find it.
You need to go find Jesus.
So real quick, of course, I love to thank a specific amount of people. So thank you to all military personnel, active duty and retired, law enforcement, fire and rescue, doctors, nurses, paramedics, hospital staff, farmers. Thank you all. Those in American manufacturing, bringing it back right here to America. Thank you so much. Those in social work, taking care of U.S. citizens with the mental health disorders and what we're doing there. Thank you all so much. And last but not least, if they exist, ethical congressional representatives. So with that being said, I want to let you two wrap up your thoughts and we'll end the episode. So let's start with you, Ryan.
Stu, I'm going to kick it to you first.
I like that. Mix it up.
Okay. I'll just bounce off what Nate said. Honest discourse, man. That's what we want here. We want different perspectives. We want to talk about these topics and, you know, read the information, see what's going on in the world, and, you know, we have our perspectives and we have our views, and we want to hear your views and your perspectives so we can put it all together and try to, you know, figure this thing out that we call life. I know that sounds corny, but I'm going with it.
I love it. No, I love it. No
so
corniness.
Talk to people that you agree with, sure. Also talk to people that you don't agree with. You know, we have to learn to get along with people that we disagree with. Even, I mean, just think about it in like a big scale. You're going to hate somebody and not talk to somebody just because you have a different political view than them. I mean, come on. That's childish to me. So we need to learn, you know, if you don't view the world through the same lens, we have to learn to get along and just agree to disagree. To talk to people you disagree with, be friends with people you disagree with, man. You know, learn to love other people. Build bridges, don't burn them. You know, come together. Like we truly do have more in common than we don't, and that's, you know, we'll just say that until it gets old because I think it's true.
Absolutely.
And, you know, freedom, man. Freedom is the most important thing in this country. And, yeah, go get some.
I like it, Stu.
I love that.
I like it. So, in reflecting with my inner monologue on this on this week's episode, first, I need to reiterate it. I really hope that no plea bargain comes down in the Hunter Biden cases that do not allow the Biden family to be prosecuted for corruption if it exists.
Right.
Second, war crimes need to stop. Like, we, as a human race, need to stop finding the worst way to do things, and let's start looking for the best way to do things. And then third, Israel and Hamas, it's a terrible situation. And I really, really hope that a peaceful resolution can be put in place that is beneficial to both sides without stepping on one or the other. And let's start trying to lift people up instead of push them down. How's that for some insight? I don't usually get that insightful on my closing remarks, but
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
I'm there this week.
We need some deep talk on this podcast, so I appreciate you bringing that to the table, especially with the whole inner monologue thing. That thing's crazy to me. I just can't get over that.
And also, aliens exist. If you don't believe in them, then you obviously don't have an inner
I also
monologue.
want to add one more thing.
Let's hear it.
Please, everyone watching, hold your government accountable, all the way
Yeah.
from federal to state to local. Hold your representatives accountable. Know what they're doing. Look into their background. Know who you're voting for. Know how they vote once they're in office, and just hold them accountable to what they say. You know, there's a lot of rhetoric out there, and I think politicians can say stuff, and people are way too lenient on that stuff. Like, they need to follow through with what they say. They need to follow through with their actions. Vote how they're talking, and yeah, please hold everyone in your government accountable, top to bottom.
Playing off that, in everyday life, if someone tells you that they're going to do something and then they don't do it, you might let that slide once.
Yep.
In your real life, right? And your normal, everyday, day-to-day life. If someone says they're going to do something and they don't do it, they automatically lose some credibility.
Oh, absolutely.
They do it twice, and they're like,
your
pretty much
trust is
dead
just
to
gone.
you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The trust in that person is gone. So start holding our representatives to that standard.
Absolutely.
We want consistency.
Absolutely. I love it. Good talk, gentlemen. Episode 149 was an absolute killer. A really good discussion. So
all killer, no filler.
All killer, no filler. I
Ooh,
love
some 41. I like it.
I love.
I love storming to the party like my name is El Nino.
I love the discussion. It was a great episode. We plan to be back next week, of course, with episode 150. So, with that being said, we will see you all then, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and see you all then. Thank you so much.